Let's do this. This is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley. 'Twas said that she had a nightmare, and that inspired this book. One hell of a nightmare. What do you think? Yeah. Let's do this. Frankenstein. Or the modern Prometheus. Chapter 1. I am by birth a Genovese. And my family is one of the most distinguished of that republic. Yeah, sure. Maybe it's Geneva, like Genovese. I am a Genovese. My ancestors have been for many years counselors and syndics. And my father had filled several public stations with honor and reputation. He was respected by all who knew him for his integrity and indefatigable attention to public business. He passed his younger days perpetually occupied by the affairs of his country. And it was not until the decline of life that he thought of marrying and bestowing on the state sons who might carry his virtues and his name down to posterity. Oh. Well, let's get on with this. As the circumstances of his marriage illustrate his character, I cannot refrain from relating them. One of his most intimate friends was a merchant who, from a flourishing state, fell through numerous mischances into poverty. This man, whose name was Beaufort, was of a proud and unbending disposition, and could not bear to live in poverty and oblivion in the same country where he had formerly been distinguished for his rank and magnificence. Having paid his debts, therefore, in the most honorable manner, he retreated with his daughter to the town of Lucerne, where he lived unknown and in wretchedness. My father loved Beaufort with the truest of friendships, and was deeply grieved by his retreat into these unfortunate circumstances. He grieved also for the loss of his society, and resolved to seek him out and endeavor to persuade him to begin the world again through his credit and assistance. Through his credit and assistance. What does that mean? This was written in 1800? Credit? They didn't have that. They did not need his credit card, right? Beaufort had taken effectual, golly gee whiz, my God. Beaufort had taken effectual measures to conceal himself. And it was 10 months before my father discovered his abode. Overjoyed at this discovery, he hastened to the house, which was situated in a main street near the Rose, R-E-U-S-S. But when he entered Misery and despair alone welcomed him. Beaufort had saved but a very small sum of money from the wreck of his fortunes, but it was sufficient to provide him with sustenance for some months, and in the meantime he hoped to procure some respectable employment in the merchant's house. The interval was consequently spent in inaction. His grief only became more deep and rankling when he had leisure for reflection, and at length it took so fast hold of his mind that at the end of 3 months he lay on a bed of sickness incapable of any exertion. What is going on here? Do you feel lost? Am I lost? Are you lost? Keep up, because I sure can't. His daughter attended him with the greatest tenderness. Tender. But she saw with despair that their little fund was rapidly decreasing, and that there was no other prospect of support. But Caroline Beaufort possessed a mind of an uncommon mold, and her courage rose to support her in her adversity. She procured plain work. She plaited straw, and by various means contrived to earn a pittance scarcely sufficient to support life. Scarcely, that kind of sounds familiar. Several months passed in this manner. Her father grew worse. Her time was more entirely occupied in attending him. Her means of subsistence decreased, and in the 10th month her father died in her arms, leaving her an orphan and a beggar. This last blow overcame her, and she was kneeling by Beaufort's coffin. When my father entered the chamber, he came like a protecting spirit to the poor girl who committed herself to his care, and after the interment of his friend, he conducted her to Geneva and placed her under the protection of a relation. 2 years after this event, Caroline became his wife. This guy swoops in, saves his daughter, the friend, and then they become married. 1800s, my folks. 1800s. My lad. I don't know how else to say this, but things were a lot chillaxed back then. When my father became a husband and a parent, he found his time so occupied by the duties of his new situation that he relinquished many of his public employments and devoted himself to the education of his children. Oh, very smart man. Think about the future. Do it right. Of these, I was the eldest, and the destined successor to all his labors and utility. No creature could have more tender parents than mine. So tender. My improvement and health were their constant care, especially as I remained for several years their only child, because for some reason, I don't know where the other children went. I thought they had other children. Anyway, okay, in my improvement, and I must record, blah, blah, blah. But before I continue my narrative, I must record an incident which took place when I was 4 years of age. My father had a sister, whom he tenderly loved. My father had a sister. Yes, the sister. The letters. You remember the letters. My father had a sister who he tenderly loved, and who had married early in life an Italian gentleman. Soon after her marriage, she had accompanied her husband into his native country, and for some years my father had very little communication with her. About the time I mentioned, she died. And a few months afterward, he received a letter from her husband acquainting him with his intention of marrying an Italian lady and requesting my father to take charge of the infant Elizabeth, the only child of his deceased sister. It is my wish, he said, that you should consider her as your own daughter and educate her thus. What a dick. What a douchey dick. What? What a dick. So I guess it's like a cousin, a niece, nephew, niece. What do you think? Niece? As your own, thus, her mother's her mother's fortune is secured to her, the documents of which I will commit to your keeping. Reflect upon this proposition and decide whether you would prefer educating your niece yourself, to her being brought up by a stepmother. That is a be with her. What about the father part? Ridiculous. My father did not hesitate and immediately went to Italy. Good man. That he might accompany the little Elizabeth to her future home. I have often heard my mother say that she was at the time the most beautiful child she had ever seen, and showed signs even then of a gentle and affectionate disposition. These indications and a desire to bind as closely as possible the ties of domestic love determined my mother to consider Elizabeth as my future wife, a design which she never found reason to repent. I don't know what that means. A design which she never found reason to repent. She never found reason. So I guess she didn't complain about it. Guess they're all buddy because they're cousins. From this time, Elizabeth Lavenza became my playfellow. Wow. And as we grew older, my friend. Quite close friend, I guess. Oh my God. She was docile and good-tempered. Jolly good. Yet gay and playful as a summer insect. Although she was lively and animated, her feelings were strong and deep, and her disposition uncommonly affectionate. No one could better enjoy liberty, yet no one could submit with more grace than she did to constraint and caprice, you shit. Her imagination was luxuriant, yet her capability of application was great. She could write an application like no other, man. Fill that resume out, please. I get it. Her person was the image of her mind. You good. Her hazel eyes, although as lively as a bird's, possessed an attractive softness. Her figure was light and airy, and though I wanted to say hairy, if you know what and though capable of enduring great fatigue, she appeared the most fragile creature in the world. While I admired her understanding and fancy, I loved to tend her, as I should on a favorite animal. And I never saw so much grace, both of person and mind, united to so little pretension. Everyone adored Elizabeth. If the servants had any request to make, it was always through her intercession. We were strangers to any species of disunion or despite, for although there was a great dissimilitude in our characters, and there was a harmony in that very in that very dissimilitude. I thought I repeated the word. I was more calm and philosophical than my companion, yet my temper was not so yielding. My application was of longer endurance, but it was not so severe while it endured. I delighted in the investigating facts relative to the actual world. She busied herself in following the aerial creation of the poets. The world was to me a secret which I desired to discover. To her it was a vacancy which she sought to people with imaginations of her own. Wow. This guy has definitely got something going on for his cousin. Whoa. I don't know what that means. I mean, it's not good, right? I don't know. Well, so that is a chapter 1, part 1, and we will be here again and do a part 2, and then if you'd like, you could subscribe, and I can keep pumping these out. I want to do this, and I want you to want me to want to do this. And I want you to want to do this. What do you think? Oh God. Oh God. Don't do that. Yeah, you shake your butt. You shake your butt. All right, it's time for part 2.